And our final speaker is Dan Bain, speaking as a resident, a member of the public.
Thank you. And I just wanted to make that clear. I obviously wear many hats, so speaking solely as a member of the public. This has been a long process that I've been involved with, and I know many members of this board have had personal attacks, myself included, in various respects. So I wanted to sit up here, and I wasn't planning on making remarks, but I wanted to know how far we've come in the last 2.5 years. And I view today as a positive step with the removal of the routes through the city of San Clemente. I think it's a positive step in that respect. I'm not going to comment on sort of future projects and endeavors, but I've had a lot of conversations with many of you individually over the past year, both as a representative of the city, as a representative of the board, and I've noted a lot of, let me say, a change in attitude, a more receptiveness to constructive dialogue, and I've appreciated that. And I think today is largely a recognition of that process. So I commend the board for that. How we go on, and obviously today is a vote for continuing a proposal into the EIR phase, which is going to be another long process. What I hope and what's implied in the recommendation today is that the 241 as an ongoing concern is effectively over, that this agency has decided that the 241 routes through the city of San Clemente and elsewhere don't make sense from a traffic, from an environmental justice standpoint. And I think the staff agenda makes that very clear. And so I hope that this board looks at that and says, okay, to the County of Orange, to OCTA, to Caltrans, hands off those aspects of this project. And I'm hoping that we get some definitive input from the board today that this is in fact the county taking over as a lead agency as it pertains to Los Patrones, that this is in fact, and using some of the prior examples, the closing of the curtain on the 241, because I think it's time. I think the city of San Clemente and the residents in South County have had this sort of Damocles sword hanging over our head for 2 years now. So I hope there will be definitive statements today that that is the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now as a reminder, item number 9, that does conclude our public speakers. Item number 9 is a Foothill Eastern only item, and so we will only hear discussion by Foothill Eastern directors. And due to the significance of this item, I would like to turn to Foothill Eastern Chair, Christina Shea, and ask for your comments.
Yes, thank you. Chairwoman Kelly, I will be short and brief, but I appreciate you giving me an opportunity. As chairwoman of the Foothill Eastern, I want to make sure that you can hear me. I want to say this effort and this decision today is truly historic. When you stop and think of the efforts by this agency, our member agency, our regional partners, and also the input from the public, we have fulfilled our promise to follow a process to a required conclusion. After a 5-year public engagement effort that has been difficult for TCA and certainly for the residents that were affected by these several different proposals, I am very pleased we have recommended a solution that represents both the community's input and is also supportive of the technical data. We had a process, we followed that process, the process has worked. Thank you to our TCA staff, the consultant team, and our executive team, and to the public. Also, I want to thank Caltrans and Caltrans District 12, which was led by Ryan Chamberlain. We very much appreciate you working with all of us here at the TCA, and thank you again so much. I look forward to a successful conclusion today.
Thank you, Chairwoman Shea. And at this point, I would like to recognize Director Lisa Bartlett, Supervisor Bartlett.
Thank you very much, Chair. This vote for me today is a real personal one, and I want to take a moment to recognize the county's role with today's action, specifically the recommendation of Alternative 22, Untold. People who know me know I'm very solution-oriented and really wanted to be part of a solution to help solve traffic in South County without impacting built-out communities, businesses, resident views, and major infrastructure that was already in place. looking at all of the alternatives that were presented during the public scoping process, and I truly appreciate all of the public input that we've had over the last couple of years. These are residents who live, work, and play out there in our communities, and your comments have been taken to heart. And in looking at all of the options that have come out during the public scoping process, whether it be 9 and 18 that make U-turns between the two toll roads, or 13 that goes through San Juan Capistrano, or 14 that went through San Clemente. And looking at all of those alternatives that were put out there early on, I didn't like any of those options. I didn't think they were viable for a whole host of reasons. And so then we were looking at, well, we've got 14,000 homes being built out in Rancho Mission Viejo. We've got an increase in and just people moving around in South County, and what are we going to do in the event of an emergency? So we've got to look at some creative options, and I looked at Alternative 22 as a really viable solution. So I sat down one day with our Public Works Director, Shane Salesby, and I said, I need to get an alignment that is going to go from Cow Camp Road through the backside of Rancho Mission Viejo and connect into La Plata by San Clemente. That's going to allow for the greatest amount of traffic relief in the area and improve public safety in the event we've got to evacuate. But we had to stay below the ridge line, and you have to stay out of the avoidance areas, and you have to stay out of the mitigation areas, and you can't go through the landfill in the geologically sensitive areas. So there was literally one dotted line path that we were able to create, and that is what's now known as Alternative 22. And really happy to be moving that forward. We circled back with all of the community leaders, Rancho Mission Viejo and OC Waste and Recycling, Caltrans and OCTA and TCA, and the community leaders in South County as well, in particular those in Dana Point, San Clemente, and San Juan Capistrano, where they would have the greatest impact here. And everyone was really delighted to see a facility that could be built out. And when you do the traffic flow on it, it actually creates better traffic flow for the community as an untolled arterial facility. And so bringing that forward today, I'm really delighted to do that. And a lot of people have said, well, you know, it's just the next phase of something else. And although the portion from Oso Parkway of Los Patronos Parkway extension to Cow Camp Road is built to state highway standards, to Caltrans standards, we are not anticipating that the road that's being built from Cow Camp and connecting into La Plata, it will not be built to Caltrans standards. That's not our intent. It would be built as a continuation of a county arterial like La Plata. So when people talk about, oh, it could be converted to something, it can't be. And the county's jurisdiction, as you know, ends at La Plata. So it's not like the county is going to say, and this is the next step of something else. This is it, basically. And to have that terminus point at La Plata, it puts the communities at ease. It gives everyone the knowledge and the ability to say, I know what's going to be built in South County. You've got your 3 major projects with your Ortega widening, your HOV continuation lane on the I-5, and you've now got the Los Patronos Parkway extension connecting into La Plata. And with those projects and then some arterial improvements and traffic light synchronization, people in the community now can rest assured that they will know what they will get now and in the future for regional mobility and enhanced public safety. And I just couldn't be more pleased to be able to present this, and hopefully we'll get the votes to move it forward. And I just appreciate the collaboration of everyone's involvement, the community, the different agencies, and certainly with the board of directors. We've all been really engaged in this as this process has moved forward. So I just would like to thank everyone who's been involved and engaged, and hopefully we'll end up with a really great decision today that we can celebrate for the long term. If at some point, if you'd like me to make a motion, I'll be happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll circle back to you at the appropriate time. And thank you, Director Bartlett. And now I'd like to recognize Director Miller to give the committee report on this item.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. This item came to the South County Traffic Relief Ad Hoc Committee on February 27, 2020, which I now chair and have been a part of from its inception. We had OCTA CEO Daryl Johnson with us at that meeting with additional OCTA senior staff members. And we had county staff there as well, and Ryan Chamberlain joined us via teleconference on that call. At the meeting, the committee discussed staff's recommendation to collaborate with our regional partners to advance Alternative 1, which is the no build, and Alternative 22, which is the Los Patronos extension, untold. That I want to make that very clear. That is an untold extension at Los Patronos. And those were advanced for further study. Staff provided an overview of the types of stakeholder outreach conducted during the public scoping period and the number of general themes of public comments received during the 94-day public scoping period. The committee asked questions about not just what the public was saying, but where the comments were coming from geographically. And I'm told additional information was added to the staff report, and I'm sure staff will cover this more with the presentation. Staff also provided a detailed overview of the methodology used for the screening summary that included whether an alternative met the South County Traffic Relief Effort project's purpose and need, the amount of congestion relief provided by an alternative, cost of the alternative, as well as its impacts on the community environment. As a result of this scoping effort and in coordination with the agency's partners, Caltrans and OCTA, 3 near-term priority projects have been identified for South Orange County. Our CEO will provide further greater detail on this presentation. As a director on both OCTA and TCA, I've always been focused on getting both agencies to collaborate more. That was one of the commitments I made when I ran for OCTA, and I wanted to follow through with for the South County. At times, it wasn't easy. I spent 15 months working on a lot of these projects, but I believe we have finally developed a clear path, and I want to thank both staffs, OCTA, Caltrans, and TCA staff, for coming together to come up with a good solution like this. Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Miller, and also to the committee who worked alongside you with this. And now we will ask our CEO, Mike Cramen, to provide the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, directors. Today marks the culmination of many years of effort to evaluate alternatives for extending the 241 toll road and provide traffic solutions in South Orange County. The item before you today is the result of a 5-year public engagement effort to genuinely and transparently work with the public to determine the most efficient and acceptable path for a southern terminus of the Foothill Transportation Corridor. After engaging thousands of local stakeholders through workshops and public forums and through the formal Caltrans scoping process, and after traffic engineers and environmental planners analyzed the benefits and impacts from the proposed South County alternatives, today's staff report proposes the adoption of a path forward. Alternative 22, untold. That, we're confident, will relieve traffic congestion while protecting communities in South Orange County, and a path that can garner the local support needed in order for a project to be built. In addition, we've been working with Caltrans and OCTA to advance 3 projects: the South County project, Alternative 22 Untold, as well as the Ortega widening in San Juan Capistrano and the I-5 HOV lane from Avenida Pico to the county line. TCA, Caltrans, and OCTA staffs agree that these projects will enable the South County to meet its growing traffic needs for the foreseeable future. Advancing transportation infrastructure projects isn't an easy process. Everyone who engaged productively can feel proud today that their participation has led quite convincingly to the path forward we're recommending today. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Board of Directors who worked alongside the public through this effort, as well as Ryan Chamberlain and his staff at Caltrans and Daryl Johnson and his staff at OCTA. Thank you, Jennifer Bergener, for being here today representing OCTA staff. We said from the beginning that we were committed to getting the right technical data, authentically engaging the public, and working cooperatively with the other regional transportation agencies. Today's recommendations prove that we were successful in what we promised the public we would do. So to run through the background on the project, starting in 2016, we had early engagement, the South County Mobility Working Groups, 3 public forums, 1,200 1,200 public comments. 20 transportation ideas were recommended by the South County working groups and the public. We did an initial screening of alternatives in 2017, and we went through the Caltrans project study report process in 2018 and 2019. We came to the board at the end of 2018, and the board authorized the PAED phase for the project and directed that at the conclusion of the NOI-NOP alternative screening phase, TCA staff is to return to the board with a reduced set of alternatives for evaluation. This item being presented today fulfills the direction given by the board. The public noticing NOI-NOP was issued in November of 2019. We followed all of the proper procedures for notices both in the Federal Register, the State Clearinghouse website, 28 advertisements in local newspapers, the 396 notices mailed to federal, state, and local agencies, elected officials, and organizations. Additionally, beyond the requirements, we emailed approximately 9,500 stakeholders who had indicated their interest in the process and mailed notices to approximately 28,000 residents in the study areas. Our comment period began on November 7th and ran through February 10th, a 94-day comment period. We hosted 2 scoping meetings within the study area and had 200 plus attendees. This was on November 20th in Mission Viejo and on December 4th in the city of Dana Point. 10 proposed project alternatives along with 4 variations of alternative 23 were included in the public scoping and alternative screening. So in this public process, we carried forward the alternatives from the project study report and added the 2 new alternatives through the public process that began in November. We also published a draft scoping report along with our NOI-NOP to provide information to the public early in that process. On the basis of the feedback that we received through the comments and the public input, we developed a set of alternative screening criteria that was used then in evaluating the alternatives for consideration and for screening, determining which alternatives would move forward in this process, as well as determining if the alternatives met project purpose and need. So the report provides a lot of information on the screening process that went through with all of the alternatives in order to determine the recommendations in the report. I'm going to focus on and just really what I think was sort of the essence or the key criteria in this process. And there's a much bigger table in your reports, in your staff report that this is extracted from. But I'd kind of like to put out that it provided a clear path. The comparison I use here is alternative 14. That's not as an indication of where that fell in the process, but really as a comparison against alt 22 untold. So I would point out that both alternatives meet the project purpose and need. Public opposition for one was very high. Public opposition to the other low. Here's some of the key technical data, though, that sort of influenced and then blended what we were hearing from the public with the technical information that was being developed and then reported through the study. So vehicle hours of delay is an important metric at this screening level when it comes to traffic analysis. And if we look at the vehicle hours of delay on I-5, for alt 14, there was a reduction of 1,740 hours. And if we look at vehicle hours of delay on all roadways, 2,350. Now let's look at alt 22 untold. Vehicle hours a day delay reduction on I-5, nearly double. Vehicle hours of delay on all roadways, nearly double. This was pretty convincing data as we worked our way through the report. Then you add to that the cost. So $1.7 billion for alternative 14 versus approximately $330 million for all 22 untold. So a clear benefit in terms of the cost effectiveness as you relate costs versus the benefits of a project. So just kind of to summarize some of the benefits of Alt 22 Untold: reduced congestion for portions of local arterials and the I-5 freeway, improved system redundancy, opportunity to extend Class 1 bike facilities, free flow movement onto the 241 toll road at Oso, low impacts to communities, low opposition and controversy. A summary of what we heard from the public: Caltrans received approximately 1,650 comments during the scoping period. General themes among the comments received: support for alternatives that shift east away from built-out areas, lack of support for alternatives 9 and 18, lack of support for a 241 toll road extension connecting to I-5 that would encompass alts 13, 14, and 17, concern with impacts to communities and protected open space. And some of the key issues that were brought up that will be studied in more detail in the environmental document preparation: open space considerations, community cohesion, geotechnical concerns, air quality, and health impacts. So based on the results of this scoping study and alternative screening analysis, it is recommended that the agency, this is the report's recommendation, so that based on the scoping study and the alternative screening analysis, it is recommended that the agency work with regional partners to advance the following alternatives for further consideration: Alternative 1, no-build alternative, and Alternative 22, Untold, Los Patrones Parkway, Untold extension. In the regional planning context, as we're going through this process, working with our partners, both in terms of the South County project scoping process, which I just walked you through, and take it in combination with the 2008 South County Major Investment Study and OCTA's 2018 Long Range Transportation Plan, Caltrans, OCTA, and TCA have concluded that there are 3 near-term South County priority projects. The Alternative 22 Untold, extending Los Patrones Parkway from its current terminus at Cow Camp to Avenida La Pata near the southern border of the Prima de Checa landfill. I-405 HOV lane on Interstate 5 between Avenida Pico and the county line, and Lower Ortega Highway widening, completing the highway widening of the gap in San Juan Capistrano. So the actions that are before you today include 5 items. The first, adopt the South County Traffic Relief Effort Project Scoping Summary and Alternative Screening Report. I think we sent a record, but I'm only going to call it the South County Report now. And its recommendation to advance Alternative 22 Untold, Los Patrones Parkway Untold extension. Direct staff to collaborate with the County of Orange to advance Alternative 22 Untold, Los Patrones Parkway Untold extension as a county major thoroughfare, and return to the board with a project development plan in conjunction with regional partners. Number 3, support Caltrans and OCTA efforts to advance high occupancy vehicle lane improvements on Interstate 5 between Avenida Pico and the San Diego County line. Support OCTA and Caltrans effort to complete the Ortega Highway widening in San Juan Capistrano. And then a final action that we're recommending to the board today: direct staff to collaborate with Caltrans and OCTA to implement the South County Report recommendations, which concludes the agency's efforts to identify solutions for a southerly extension of the 241 toll road. Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kramen. And at this point, I will entertain a motion by Director Bartlett, and then after our second, we can have discussion.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Chair Kelly. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommended actions for today that were just outlined.
I'll be proud to second that.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. And okay, so we will begin with Director Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really excited about this. And I want to thank Director Bartlett specifically for all the hard work she did with the county and Rancho Mission Viejo to help identify this route. As we were going through this process, I know you guys were all very frustrated in San Clemente about what was being discussed, and I understand that, but we have to take it through a process. And just to kind of clarify something I did at a November meeting, I was frustrated as well, and I jumped the gun on Alternative 22 a little bit. I didn't even give Director Bartlett the courtesy to let her know I was about to do it, so I apologize for that, Director. But this has been an ongoing, very interesting process to me, and I spoke about it a little bit in my director's or the committee report. But I want to thank that ad hoc committee. Director Beal was our chair last year. He gave us great leadership on how we should continue on this process, and I want to thank the entire committee because they had a lot of great input. But one of the issues I had while we were going through this, and it wasn't just this project, it was the 24191, and I mentioned it was the communication between these agencies. Yeah, that was extremely important to me. There are 5, I call us crossover directors because we sit on both OCTA and TCA, and we all play a little bit different role. But that was the one thing I saw when I got on that we were really struggling with. And so it was my goal to get together with the leaders of each agency and just sit down and kind of hash out what the problems were and why we were doing what we were doing. And I think we were very successful in that. And so, I'm very proud of what's going on here today. This alternative has the least environmental impact, the least impact on our communities. It solves a big problem that we have. I understand that these roads are only a mile apart. Down Ortega, it's actually, I think, a little bit farther than that, but it's something that solves a north-south issue that we have. We don't have resiliency in that area as of yet. This goes a long way to creating that. And so I think I heard Director Bartlett, she can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think I just heard her say that the county is going to take the lead on this. I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's what it sounded like when she said, once it hits La Pata, that's it, because that's the end of their authority.
The county would be happy to take the lead on it, just not the funding lead on it.
Oh, well, we'll get to that.
It's an expensive road.
And we're not talking about how right now, we're talking about what. So I appreciate that because that's
Right.
an important component of the concern about a toll or tolling it later on. If it's a county arterial, we do not have the authority to toll that road. And so it will remain free. And that's my opinion. And that's important for South County to understand. One of the things I do want to make an amendment to one of the items on your bullet point, and I hope Director Bartlett will accept that. It's bullet point 2, when we are directing TCA to get together with the county and Caltrans and bring back a project development plan. I would like to put a timeline on that and have it back within 120 days. And if it's not a completed plan, at least an update on that plan, where we are, so we know what's going on in the process. And then bring it back. If you can bring it back faster, obviously. And then we want it back every 120 days until we have a completed plan, or as quickly as you can get it to us. I'd like to make that amendment.
Is there a second?
And I appreciate the amendment. The county right now, as you know, is extremely busy. All departments are engaged in things from coronavirus to everything else. And we've got all hands on deck on a number of projects. So the 120-day, I think it's a great check-in point. I don't know if we can guarantee that a specific scope of work would be completed by that date, but certainly check in, and we can do that every 120 days and provide updates, and happy to do so.
That was my amendment to it, that 120 days, we're going to get an update and hopefully a plan. I understand that may not be able to do it in a full 120. So we are continually getting updated on where we're on this project.
Okay, well, the maker of the motion accepts that amendment. Thank you.
Okay, well, with that,
Okay. So there was a second. Did you second that amendment? Or
well,
has
whoever
someone
had the second have to accept it as
Okay.
well.
Scott Whites. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and with that, thank you. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. We will go on to Director Donn Wagner, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And a couple of quick points. First of all, thank you to the Chief Executive Officer for the presentation. It goes through a whole bunch of points, a couple of which I wanted to make. I want to emphasize just two quick things, both of which have been touched on, but I do want to emphasize them. We did hear from a speaker about how San Clemente has defeated Project 14. And I want to thank the residents of San Clemente who have come here many times and given us the benefit of their views, some of whom are here today to give us the benefit of their views. That's the way the process ought to work, and that's what I want to highlight. The process worked. It isn't that the residents of San Clemente or anyone else defeated 14. We heard the residents, and we did the technical studies, and the Chief Executive Officer outlined them. The key technical data supports the direction that we are moving, and we are appropriately responding to that technical information. We are appropriately responding to the concerns of the local residents. And we heard some additional concerns today with respect to Alternative 22 Untold, whether or not it's even necessary. And I am fully supportive of this motion, not because it is the end of the process, obviously, but just because it is the beginning of the next stage in the process. So the process has worked, and I appreciate all the stakeholders who have been involved. Let me now pick up just a little bit of the bad news to follow up on what Director Mueller just said. And I know no funding decisions are being made today. Supervisor Director Bartlett was clear on that. She has been stalwart champion of this project. But it needs to be said that the county right now, our current 7-year capital improvement program does not have this project in it. And all of our road funds for the next 7 years are in the capital improvement project. And so we are going to have to look long and hard, as Director Mueller said, as now former board chairwoman Bartlett made clear, look at funding down the road. There are no promises of county monies today. I want to make sure everybody knows that. But the process is in place. The process has worked. Congratulations to the agency, the staff, and Director Mueller and everybody else who has made sure this works the way it's supposed to work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And next, Director Wang.
Thank you, Chair. It's actually Huang. That's all right. I joined this board at the height of a lot of the friction between the agencies, especially I came here right after our very disastrous, I felt at the time, public outreach. And I was very worried about the whole process. But what I stated back then, and as I do today, is that we need to focus on the data. I've been pushing staff to give me data, drown out the noise of opinions. I just wanted to see where the data take us and go from there. And I think that's what brought us here today. With the full recognition of the fact that this is probably the most unusual process any public agency has ever gone through, where I don't think I can ever recall a time where the public is taken into the same room as the staff as they're going through every option. Typically, in a bureaucracy, you'll see staff going through all the options, then they take it to the policymakers, and then the public's always the last to know. Here, we decided to bring everyone into the room. Was it painful? I think all of us can say it was very painful, unusual. It was very uneasy process. But I think at the end of the day, all of us got to know each other a lot better, as well as the agencies worked a lot better. And I'm hoping that this will lead to future collaboration with OCTA and Caltrans at the matter that it is today. But most importantly, for the members of the public to know that I hope you felt you were part of the process and continue to be part of the process as we go through this. But most importantly is the fact that at the end of the day, it's what data will bring us here. It's brought us here today. I do want to make it very clear for the members of the public who, I think there was a speaker who mentioned that about the possibility of tolling Alternative 22. What you didn't see on one of these slides, but we do have here in front of us, and I even comparing Alternative 22 tolled versus untolled still perform better. And as someone who, myself, I'm driven by data, even looking at untold, performing better than told, then there's no reason for this agency or Caltrans or OCTA to ever consider tolling Alternative 22. Not only does it not perform as well, but it also costs more. So I think we need to continue to keep our eyes on these data points, continue to engage the public in what we do. And lastly, I just want to thank Caltrans and OCTA in this process, as well as our TCA staff, and special recognition to our directors who have gone through, sitting both on OCTA and TCA, going through all this. Balancing act is not easy. You don't know which hat to wear at what time. So I appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you, Director Wong. Director Ward.
I too am going to have a lot of nice comments to say, but I just have a couple questions. In the report, it says that, this is the language, as a result of the South County Traffic Relief Project formal scoping process and in conjunction with Orange County Transportation Authority, South Orange County Major Investment Study 2008, I can't even say this, SOCMAS and its 2008 Long Range Transportation Plan. There's all these acronyms. Caltrans and OCTA and the agency have concluded that there are 3 near-term South County projects.
Priority projects.
One is extending Los Patrones Parkway as an untolled major thoroughfare. Second is Caltrans taking the lead, advancing the HOV lane on I-5 from Pico to the county line. And then Caltrans as a lead agency completing the Ortega Highway widening in San Juan Capistrano, which we have heard that now has San Juan Capistrano support and has support of all the 3 other agencies. That in itself is huge development from the last few years. And also the high agreement at a high level of Alternative 22 is a major development for this agency and for, I think, the other 2 agencies also. But what is not clear, and I'm hoping that we can make clear, is whether this concludes the South County Traffic Relief Project. That's what I am not clear on, and I think it's not super clear in these reports, and I think for the public and for the board here, we need to know if that project is concluded and this is what is moving forward only.
Yeah. So
Mr. CEO, please.
thank you, Director Ward. So that's the intent of the 5th action that you're asking for. Direct staff to collaborate with Caltrans and OCTA to implement the South County Traffic Relief Report recommendations, which concludes, or maybe a better word would be and conclude, the agency's efforts to identify solutions for a southerly extension of the 241 toll road. That's clearly the intent. I mean, this has been 25 years we've been looking at this, and today marks the day where that effort comes to an end, because we've come up with a good solution that serves the needs in a foreseeable future. It's in a way that's supported by technical data. It's supported by what we heard from the public and the public input that we got in this process. So that's the intent of that item. We're currently in a Caltrans process. Alternative 22 doesn't require us to remain in a Caltrans process going forward. So that's the point of staff recommendation 2, collaborate with the County of Orange, because this will be a county project. The county will be the lead agency for moving forward with that. But we're going to work with Caltrans and OCTA, and then in item 2 with the county to move this forward. And there's only one the no build and one build alternative that's being requested for action to be moved forward today.
Then with that explanation, I'd like to ask Director Miller if he would, and the rest of the board, if he would consider on option number 1, at the end where it says adopt the South County Traffic Relief Effort Summary and Alternatives and its recommendation to advance Untold 22 Los Patrones Parkway Extension, period. I would like to add formally conclude the SCRTE project with letters of appreciation to Caltrans and participating agencies and all organizations, including everyone we heard from today, every city and city council within this JPA, notifying them of the end of the CEQA process and thanking them for their efforts and their participation. I'd like that just set out that this, I understand that it says it in number 5, but I think for clarity and for the newspapers and everyone going forward, and especially the public, that they understand that this formally concludes that process. And so I'll read it again if you need, but I'd like to add that language to number 1.
Okay, so you're asking for an amendment to the amendment.
Right. Just saying formally conclude the SCRTE, I might have that backward, project with letters of appreciation to Caltrans and I should say OCTA and other participating agencies and organizations, notifying them of the end of the CEQA process and thanking them for their efforts and participation. Because this truly is a landmark where we've gotten to. And it's been a lot of work, and I think it should be reflected.
Okay, and let's see if there's a second on that before we proceed. There's an amendment to the... She's making an amendment, so we first deal with the latest amendment, and then the next amendment, and then the main motion. So is there a second?
Yeah. So accept the amendment. Unless she's offering a substitute motion, which we would then take up.
So she's offering an amendment, we have to ask.
And I think rather than sending out specific letters to specific agencies, et cetera, maybe just a formal report out by TCA acknowledging, what we need to say would be more appropriate.
That can be done offline without adding it to the agenda or to the motion?
I think, well, there's probably going to be, I would assume, a press release going out, and that could be something noted within the press release to state that, and that goes out to everyone. That way we're not overlooking any entity or person or agency out there that we would need to notify. It goes out to the world. So that's something that I think we could certainly take care of within the press release.
Okay, so we can encompass that in the direction to staff
Yes.
without
we
a
could.
formal motion on that.
Yes, we could. We'll work with Director Ward in order to get wording into the official statement that goes out from the agency.
Okay, I just think that would be important. If we're saying as a board that we're stopping this process and we're moving on with this, it's important to clearly state that, especially for the public. If we're going to stop building 241 Toll Road through South Orange County cities, I think if we stop, I think the public will also stop the opposition, and I think that's just important that we do that at this time and not let that linger.
Okay, and again, I think this is actually included in item number 5, but we've heard you, the staff has heard you, and I'm sure they will clarify in the press releases and such that do go out. Now I'll turn next to Chair Christina Shea, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's comments. This is a very important day. I do agree with Director Ward in regard to tightening up the language a bit. I was going to propose, and actually I had suggested in our committee meetings that we would propose perhaps an MOU, because I know the community in San Clemente are very concerned. They want to know that this is a final approval, and I think that the document could be tightened up just a bit. And my thought was that we could recommend, which formally concludes and finalizes in item 5, which is, I think, the appropriate place to add this, it's just to, which it says, which concludes the agency's efforts. We could add 2 words, which formally concludes and finalizes the agency's efforts to identify solutions for southerly extension of 241 Toll Road. I think it just tightens it up a bit. I think it addresses your concern. I think the letters certainly are something the staff would be sending out anyways. Our press releases are going to be very clear. But if we could add those 2 words, and if the maker of the motion would be supportive of that, just put it in B in item 5.
Okay, and I appreciate the comments. I just don't want to be too redundant. I think concludes and finalizes are pretty much the same thing. So we would just be repeating
We
something
could say
similar.
formally concludes. I just think it needs to be tighter.
Formally concludes is fine. I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on now to Director Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I should have addressed this earlier, bullet point 5. We spent a lot of time talking about this in committee, and we were very careful about how we worded this because we wanted to let people know this does conclude what we're doing in terms of our 241 extension study. However, we're getting hung up on semantics here. We are done. Nothing that we do today will prevent a board from 20 years from now from undoing it, okay? So I don't want to get hung up on this stuff. I mean, we worked really hard to word that, so we were letting people know we're done. The 241 is, once we hit La Pata, we are no longer studying that connection. We feel like we've made it. So we probably spent more time talking about that item than any other item. I'm good with the way it reads today. I don't think we need to add any additional language to it because it clearly states what that subcommittee wanted. However, we are just, an ad hoc. We're just an ad hoc bringing it out to the board. So if that's the will of the board, that's fine. Thanks.
Okay, well, let's.
Formally. Yeah, well, if we could,
Director Bartlett.
are you okay with adding the word formally?
Yeah.
I just think it gives it tighter.
Yes, I'm fine with that. So it would be formally concludes in item 5, and that's fine.
Okay, our next director who wishes to speak is Director Voights.
We had heard again from the public, and this has been a long and at times painful process, coming to an alternative and an attachment to try to ease traffic flow in South Orange County. And the fact is the 5 freeway is such a major conduit from Los Angeles to San Diego that it was imperative that we come up with a solution. And so I think what we've come here with the help of the TCA and all the studies is that 22 is the best alternative to ease traffic congestion in South Orange County and help the I-5 arterial to be a conduit for the rest of the state, because that is a major life flow for the state of California from Los Angeles to San Diego. I think that it's important that we as a board have always looked at the data, because we're data driven and we want to be successful in what we do. And obviously we've heard the concerns of all those in San Clemente and San Juan. And we were going through with our eyes wide open that those alternatives that were proposed before 22 were somewhat problematic for the residents there. We heard your fear, and we have come up with a solution. I think that is a great solution for the future of Orange County and the state of California. So I'm happy with the language that's there. And I would accept those last few words, but the fact is that we're still going to be sending out an ERI, and we're just continue the database. But the fact is, we've come up with a solution. Do we want to go through this process again? No, we don't. We've heard it from you all, and let you know that we've heard you, and we appreciate, because as an agency that we should be transparent in what we do. We should be, as elected leaders, always listening to whether they are for us or against us. And so we've heard you, and we thank you. I think the 22 is going to be a great solution for us as we move forward. But I like the language there, but I'll leave it to the maker, and I'll accept whatever's there.
Okay, and Director Ward, you removed yourself from the queue?
I didn't mean to.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
You hit the button again,
think
I
I
guess.
undid it.
Okay, so final comment by Director Ward, and then we'll be ready
Just
to
one
vote.
last question. Director Miller said that 22 would not be told in the future. And I just want you to clarify that for the public also.
So with the recommendation before you today, we would move this project forward through the county process as a county road. Therefore, any decision like that in the future would be unlikely. Number one, the data shows it performs better untold over told. So this agency would, based on that data, would not be inclined to, and that's not what we're recommending.
Okay, and final comment, Director Beal.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, as was mentioned, over the past year, I was the chair of the South County Traffic Relief Ad Hoc Committee. And I want to say that I'm proud of this agency and this board of directors for the effort that we have put in over the past many years. We engaged in a lengthy 5-year process. It was professional. We had detailed technical analysis, traffic relief needs, and every potential alternative. It was studied thoroughly. We sought public engagement. Anyone that had any input, we wanted to hear from you. And we listened. We listened to everyone in good faith. And that public engagement was critical and very important. And today, the process is now coming to its next natural step. And our efforts over the past 5 years, I would call to the attention of all the members of the public and the media. It's basically summarized in spreadsheets that are in our report today. I call your attention to it. This is how good, thorough, fully informed decisions and government decision-making is done. And I salute everyone at the TCA and this board that contributed to doing this. I'm very pleased that the TCA, the OCTA, and Caltrans are in agreement with this path forward. Where we find ourselves today, it shows that our process worked exactly as we had planned. As the representative from the city of Rancho Santa Margarita on the TCA, I want to make a few comments. The 241 toll road and its extension has been the city of Rancho Santa Margarita's #1 regional priority for as long as I could remember. And what's being proposed will further extend the road, which is a plus. Miles of additional roadway. Why is it a plus? Because it's increased access to and from our city. It is good for the car dealerships. We heard from one of our car dealers today. For our businesses and restaurants, customers can come in. Our customers can go into other cities. Increased mobility, reduced traffic is great for everyone. It improves the quality of life for everyone in the region. So I think this is a great result. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the process and how difficult it has been. And I'm saddened, but not surprised about how difficult it was, because that's politics. In my opinion, there were leaders, a few of them, in the No Toll Road group, and even some of our Orange County state legislators who had obvious personal political agendas that were willing to divide our community for the sake of their personal political agenda at the expense of doing what's right for the overall community. Our goal, as evidenced by all the work that we have done, shows this agency has worked to the best of our ability to make fully informed decisions to benefit the entire region, improve mobility and the quality of life for all residents. What was their stated goal? And we saw it time and again. They wanted to abolish the TCA. They wanted to stop this process before it began. That's wrong. In my opinion, that is a failure of leadership. It divides communities. It divides a region. Members of this board of directors faced threats, and intimidation and terrible false personal attacks. A number of us have been accused of corruption, taking payoffs, conflicts of interest, utter incompetence, and threatened with and served with recall papers. One of our speakers today said, "You've all been put through a firing squad." Nothing could be further from the truth. That is a fact. And that is no surprise. We all saw the scope of work that came from the public affairs or lobbyist that was hired by the city of San Clemente. It was a scorched earth policy by design, and many of us have personally paid that price. In my opinion, that was a shameful failure of leadership. But as one of our speakers, Aaron Beyer, said today, voters spoke loudly and clearly on Tuesday when
Madam Chair, I
our
have a point of order.
incumbent state assemblyman
He has
was
the floor
voted
right
out of
now.
office. Real leadership
He has the
is
floor.
taking constructive input from everybody, working constructively with all stakeholders to find the best alternatives for the entire region.
Mr. Joseph.
And that is what we have done. In my opinion, this proposal is a great result for the entire
Let me turn
community.
to council.
Madam Chair, I would recommend recognizing the point of order.
All right, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I would submit that these are campaign comments and they are not in the purview of the TCA. We're talking about communities here and campaigns, elections that occurred a week ago. That's not pertinent, and those comments should cease. This isn't TCA business.
Okay,
I disagree, and I appreciate your comments. May I continue?
please
Thank you.
continue.
I want the residents of San Clemente to understand something. Without question, every member of this board of directors, we love the city of San Clemente. We frequent it. We love your beaches, your restaurants. We love you. There's not one person on this board trying to destroy your city. We love your city. And so, once again, I'm proud of the TCA board of directors that we stayed the course, worked through this process. Our decisions that we will make today are based upon facts and analysis, not politics and misinformation. And I believe when we take action, we will improve the quality of life for the entire region. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we do have a final comment from Director Miller.
Just not really a comment. I just want a clarification from our CEO. This recommendation concludes that we are only advancing a non-tolled option. I was a little confused on how you answered Director Ward's question. So we are only advancing a non-tolled option. So as far as this agency is concerned, there will be no tolling on that road.
Absolutely correct.
Okay. And we are no longer studying a connection to the 5 once we approve this.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, and that is clear in the 5 recommended action points. And so at this time, I will call for a vote, and this is a vote of the Foothill Eastern Committee Board only. So all those in favor of the 5 recommended actions, please say aye.
Aye.
The amended.
Any, and is there any opposition? Say no. Then that motion does carry unanimously. Congratulations. It has been a very rigorous process, and thank you to all who've worked so hard on it.